On this week's episode of Hockey Inside Out, we find out from the panel their thoughts on the first 4 games of the season and whether or not they might play themselves out of a lottery spot going towards the June draft next year. And also, Juraj Slafkovsky, what's his future going to hold? Should he stay in Montreal or go to Laval? And finally, their thoughts on the defenseman. Which young guy has played so well that they might stick around for the long term moving forward? This and more here on Hockey Inside Out. And welcome into another episode of Hockey Inside Out. We have our panel with us, the number one line of this show, as we welcome in Stu Cowan from the Montreal Gazette, Rick Green, former Montreal Canadiens defenseman, and of course Andrew Berkshire, who was the program director of a great thing with Game Over as well. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. A lot to break down here. The Canadiens, your main takeaways of the first 4 games of the year, and also with this start, do they potentially play themselves out of a lottery pick going towards the June draft next year, Stu?
Well, they come as advertised. I mean, before the season, I thought this team was going to compete hard. I thought they were going to be fun to watch, and I thought there were going to be a lot of growing pains, and we've seen all of that through the first 4 games of the season. Offense, we thought the defense was going to be a problem, and they were going to score a lot of goals, but the defense has actually played better than the offense. Most of the games, a young defenseman stepping up. The compete levels there, we saw that last season when Marty St. Louis took over from Dominic Ducharme. Guys want to play for Marty St. Louis. They're buying what he's selling. They're working hard. They're playing hard. We saw it against Pittsburgh, down 2-0 to a really good team before the game with Sam Montembeault in goal. And early in the game, what looked like a goal, after video review, it was ruled not a goal. And I was thinking this could be a long night. But they battled back. They fought hard. The young defense played really well. Cole Caulfield was Cole Caulfield. And I think that's what we're going to see this season. We're going to see the young players continue to improve. We're going to see them compete. And we're going to see some nights when they make a lot of mistakes and they end up losing. But I think it's going to be a fun season just to watch these young guys as they develop.
Yeah, I think Stu hit the nail on the head there. They're a fun team right now. They're fun to watch. They're not necessarily good. They're going to have good nights. They play hard under St. Louis. The best thing I think about what this team does under St. Louis is they never seem to give up. And that was present last year, too. They were the 9th worst team in the league after St. Louis took over in February, but they never gave up on games. It seemed like under Ducharme, once they got down a goal or 2 goals, the air just went right out of them, and they knew it was over. Under St. Louis, they're still going to lose a lot, but they don't seem to know that it's over, and they keep pushing. And that's exciting. It keeps fans in the building, it keeps fans engaged. So even though they are probably going to finish bottom 5 this year, I think it's going to be exciting enough watching some of these young players compete that it's still going to be engaging hockey.
And I think it's early, obviously, to make any real calls, other than it does give Martin St. Louis the opportunity to try some different line combinations and see, who complements each other and trying to build some chemistry among their group. And, you guys touched on a couple areas. You talked about the speed of the hockey club, the desire to compete each and every night. That's going to be there. In the long run, they're going to have their games that they're going to everybody's going to go, wow. And then there are going to be some other games that is normal that they're going to struggle in a number of areas. But, their power play has been a concern for quite a while now, and still a concern. Trying to get and generate some goals on their power play is going to be critical. But again, it's still early. They're still going to experiment with some different guys. And the bottom line out of all of this is they're a much more skilled team. Now it's just a question of fine tuning, and with time, I think, and maturity for some of these young kids with great expectations moving forward. I think there's going to be more positive than negative, and surprise some hockey clubs on any given night.
As you said, Rick, they're skilled players, and Marty St. Louis is letting them use their skills. He's mentioned quite a few times he's not going to overcoach mistakes. He said mistakes happen. He said if they become a trend, if the mistakes become a trend and they're repeated over and over, then you got to work on it. But he wants the guys just to go out and play. And the perfect example of that is Cole Caulfield. Now he has 25 goals now in 41 games with Marty St. Louis as coach. I failed grade 10 math, but I think that works out to be a 50-goal pace for an 82-game season. Now we've seen it with Kaiden Guhle. I mean, the way he played against Pittsburgh, he was out there to start overtime. Could you imagine Dominic Ducharme putting a rookie defenseman out to start overtime? It just wasn't going to happen. So he also used Kaiden Guhle on the power play against Pittsburgh, and he said he wants to have him sit and watch from the bench for a while, see how the power play works, and then put him out there. And he said the same thing about Slafkovsky. Eventually, he'll get on the power play, but he wants him to watch from the bench. And so I think Marty St. Louis is just the perfect coach for this team, dealing with these young guys, letting them play without pressure, allowing them to make mistakes and learn from them rather than being nailed to the bench or made a healthy scratch if they make too many mistakes. And that's why this team's going to be fun moving forward. We're going to see the skilled players allowed to show their skill on the ice.
And I was always a strong believer, coaching with some young guys that come into the league. The worst thing you can do is rattle their confidence by, sitting them down after they've made mistakes. And that type of, approach seems to be long gone. And I think that the kids in all of the kids don't have that fear anymore. And what that does allow them is to go out and play without that stress of saying, "Oh, I'm going to get sat on the bench because I made a bad play," instead of, I won't do that mistake next time. So I think that all in all, they're really handling these young men really well, and I think that there's going to be a lot more positive to come out of it.
Yeah, and I'm sure you can speak to it as a former player, Rick, that when you make a mistake out there on the ice, you probably know, and you don't actually need somebody to come and yell in your ear that you made a mistake. You feel bad enough already. So it's one of those things where, along with development in this club, that things are all about lifting guys up now. It's not necessarily about hammering them for making mistakes. It's about giving them the best tools to be the best player that they can possibly be. And that's something that the Canadiens have been behind on for 30 years now. So it's nice to see them catch up.
And there's teaching. There's teaching going on too. I had a nice chat with Kovacevic. I'm still learning how to pronounce his name. The big defenseman they picked up on waivers from Winnipeg, and he was telling me a game against Pittsburgh. There was a couple of plays where puck was coming along the boards, and he says, "I just tried to sort of chip it out." He said, "Not a great play, not a bad play, but a safe play." And he went to the bench, and Stefan Robida said, "You got to look for the lane. There's a guy coming through the lane." He said a couple of shifts later, he had a similar play, and again, he sort of made the chip play out, as he said, not a bad play, not a great play. And Robida again said to him, "Check the lane." And he said the third time that play came up, the similar play, he looked the lane, he saw Brendan Gallagher, he hit him with the puck, and Gallagher went down and had a scoring chance. And he said when he got back to the bench, Robida had a big smile on his face and was like, "That's what I want you to do."
So, guys, I got a stat for you. So last year, this team started 0-5. They gave up 19 goals, and they scored 4. This year, they've given up 11 goals and scored 7. Their third win last year came on November 3rd against Detroit. So they're already at 2 wins. We're not even halfway through October. So that brings up the question, though, with this team and their draft host, because as great as we love to see this team win, they're going to play themselves out of a lottery pick and potentially Connor Bedard come late June.
Well, they have the same record as the Leafs after 4 games.
Well, I think it's all going to play out. The main point being, Martin St. Louis has stressed we want to get better each and every game and each and every day. And, that's the program that they have laid out for their hockey club. And, at the end of the season, or, in the segments that they break down, let's see where that's going. But the main point being is they want to get better in a lot of areas. And whatever happens at the end of the year, draft time, they'll deal with it as it comes. But they're not, I don't believe, in mindset of saying, okay, we're just going to keep it kind of almost. They want to get better. Each and every one of those kids are quality kids. They have good character, and they want to show that they deserve to be in the NHL and want to contribute in a very good way. And I think we'll see that more than the negative.
Yeah, they don't. The players don't care where they pick next year. The players have no interest in where the Canadiens draft next year. The players on the ice want to win. And the worst thing that can happen to an organization is when you let a losing atmosphere, a losing culture set in. And look at the Buffalo Sabres. So tanking for a draft pick. And we saw what happens to the losing atmosphere in a room with Dominic Ducharme last year before he was fired. Players had given up. They didn't care anymore. Worst thing that can possibly happen, especially with so many young guys in the locker room. So this team's going to compete every night. And they're going to win games, and they're going to lose some games with their mistakes. But they're not worried. Marty St. Louis isn't thinking, okay, we got to lose games to get Connor Bedard. They're going to play as hard as they can every night and let the chips or the draft picks land where they do.
Yeah, although don't make no mistake, they are definitely going to be tanking this year. It's not going to be a Buffalo Sabres level tank, but I think this team is aiming for a bottom 5 finish. They're not looking to repeat what happened last year where they were the worst and trying to compete with Arizona. I don't think there's any way that they compete with Arizona or Chicago this year for worst team in the league. So I think they're hoping for some lottery luck. But the best thing is that this year's draft, there's 3 de facto potential franchise players in this draft, and one of them might fall into like 4 or 5 just because of the Russian factor.
Yeah, I don't think the word tank. They're not going to win that many games just because they're young and they're inexperienced. It's not a case of going out and tanking and trying. They're a young, inexperienced team, so they're going to lose more games than they're going to win.
Well, last year their tanking project led to the first overall pick in Juraj Slafkovsky. Gentlemen, looking at his early start to the year, does he stay with the Habs or do you send him down to Laval?
I think he's bound for Laval at one point during the season. It's going to be probably around the 9-game mark if he makes it that far. I really like some aspects of what Slafkovsky is bringing right now, especially without the puck in the defensive zone. I think his defensive play has come a long way in a very short time. Offensively, he still seems a little bit behind the pace, although I think he was much better against Pittsburgh. I think I would have liked to see him get a little bit more ice time in that game because I do think that he was doing good things in the offensive zone. In fact, one of the best plays that he made, he was poke checked by his own teammate, Mike Hoffman. He was bringing the puck to the slot with purpose, and the tank commander, Mike Hoffman, was right there to make sure that he couldn't get anything done. No offense to you, Mike, but not a great start there. But Slafkovsky reminds me a little bit right now of Max Pacioretty when he was first called up, when he wasn't quite putting things together, right? He had all these chances to get offense going. He was good without the puck, but things weren't quite fitting together. And he had to sit some time in Hamilton down in the AHL for a couple of years before he finally came and broke out. I don't know if Slafkovsky needs a couple of years in the American Hockey League, but I don't think that he's NHL ready right now.
Well, time will tell. Let's piece our way along here. He's been given opportunity to play in different situations. I think he's progressing in a good way. I think he has all the tools and character, to be a good player. There's a process here. I mean, here's a young kid that's coming over and playing the North American game, which is quite different. A smaller ice surface is quite different. So there's an adjustment period here. And here's a kid that I like the fact that he does have the tools to become a real good player. He has the size, he has the speed, and he has a real desire to want to do well. So what's the worst case scenario? If he does struggle and maybe becomes a little overwhelmed with what's happening in the league, go down to Laval and fine tune the North American game, and then see how he handles himself. But he has all the tools right now. They're handling him in an easy way, in the way of making sure that they don't put him in some tough situations and destroy his confidence. So give this kid a chance. It's early. I like the way he's progressing, and he's going to be a good player. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, watching him, personally, I don't think he looks ready for the NHL. I mean, he's not winning many puck battles along the boards. He falls down a lot. He's not strong on his stick. Skates around a lot of times like it's a magic wand in one hand. And I remember one of the games, can't remember who it was, came behind, knocked the stick out of his hands, and it went about 30 feet up in the air. He's a little slow reacting in the defensive zone when the puck comes along the boards to him. But this is all understandable. He's 18 years old, playing on a small rink, playing in a new country, adjusting to all kinds of things. But this season's all about development, and Marty St. Louis can be patient with him. If this was a team that was playoff hopes, Stanley Cup hopes, he would be in Laval now, but they're not. At this point, the Canadiens think for his development, right now they want him in Montreal. They want him around Marty St. Louis. They want him around Adam Nicholas, their skills coach. They want him at practices. They want to work on things. I think at one point he is going to go down to Laval, but I think they want to let him get a really good taste of what it takes to play in the NHL and just how fast it is and how quick you have to react, and how, Marty St. Louis spoke after the game in Washington how he needs to use his body more, especially for his size. Drive to the net. That's where the goals are scored in the NHL. It's going to come. They're patient with him. Some fans are upset. Oh, he's not on the fourth line. He's not getting ice time. It's baby steps with this kid, even though he's a giant. Baby steps. I think we're going to see him on the power play at some point, but before he goes down to Laval, if he does go down to Laval, Marty St. Louis is taking his time with him. They're working with him on showing him video. Slafkovsky has talked about how much Adam Nicholas has helped him, showing video of himself and of other players in the NHL about what to do along the wall and defensive zone and that. So he's well surrounded here. It's not like they're just throwing him out there, letting him lose confidence or whatever. They're breaking him in slowly. He has the least amount of ice time on the team. But I think Marty St. Louis, as long as he sees progress each game, as long as he sees them listening to what they're telling him to do and getting a little bit better every game, I think he's going to stay here. I think if he stagnates and starts going reverse as far as development, I think that's when he'll go to Laval. But as of now, they like what they see. He's listening. He seems like he wants to learn. He wants to stay here. He's a smart kid. He's comfortable in the environment. So we'll see. But I think at some point he will end up in Laval, but I don't think it's going to be in the next couple of weeks.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point, Stu, because gone are the days where a prospect is just left on an island to kind of figure it out themselves. This isn't a Kotkaniemi situation where they say, well, shoot more. You know, they're giving him detailed analysis of what he needs to work on, enhancing his strengths, looking at his weaknesses. This is a guy who seems to be very confident and is surrounded by people who can help him get better. So as much as I feel like the fan base is a little bit shell-shocked by past failures in developing prospects, right? You look at Kotkaniemi and you look at the ice time and you're like, oh, he's never going to develop if he doesn't get enough puck touches. But he's getting lots of puck touches in practice. He's working with Adam Nicholas. And if the points don't come this year, it doesn't necessarily mean that a lot of development didn't happen. I think look back at Joe Thornton. His first season, 55 games, 7 points. Who would have ever believed that he would become one of the best players in NHL history at that point, right? Not saying that Slafkovsky is on that same trajectory, but don't stress out too much about point production because it can take time, especially with a guy with a big body who's learning how to play that big game in the NHL.
Yeah, with Kotkaniemi, he physically wasn't ready to play in the NHL when they brought him up here. You know, he was still a young boy growing into his body. Slafkovsky's a man, so physically he has it. He's got to realize, as St. Louis said, they just want him to use that body more, be a little bit more aggressive. I think he's a little tentative when you see him going into one-on-one puck battles. He's a little tentative. He's got to get a little bit more jack eye in him and go in there hard and compete a little bit harder. But I think that'll come. And you know, you can't compare the development from the past with the Canadiens with what they have under this new regime. It's night and day. I mean, Adam Nicholas, analytics department. These kids are much better surrounded and much better taught during practice, video sessions, everything else. So as I mentioned earlier, I think they think for Slafkovsky, he's better surrounded coaching-wise. Not that there's problems in Laval, they don't have the same staff that they have in Montreal, but he's better surrounded right now with the coaching staff, the video staff, everything they have here in Montreal to help him develop.
Rick, final word?
Just saying, you know, he's just a kid and he's just trying to figure things out over here. And they're handling him, I think, very well in the way of giving him opportunities to play in different situations and see how he's able to handle himself. And I'm happy, like I said, with his progress. And you know, he's going to get better. And let's just not have great expectations that he's going to light it up each and every night. He's got great vision. He's got all the tools. Now he's going to fine tune it, and he's going to be a big part of this hockey club.
And as you said, Rick, he is a kid. He talked after practice today about phoning his buddies back in Slovakia. So I'm playing against Alex Ovechkin tonight. I'm playing against Sidney Crosby tonight. And he said it's like PS4. It's like I'm playing a PS4 video game, but it's real life. So his kids
it's PS5 now, not PS4. Yeah. We've upgraded to the video game world here. So quickly, guys, do you think he'll be on that 4-game road trip when the Habs play next week away from the Bell Center?
I do.
Yeah, I believe that no question he'll be there.
I'm 50-50 on it because I think keeping that extra year of his ELC contract is very tempting. I know that you don't want to send him down if he's belonging just to save that year, but I think it would really benefit the Montreal Canadiens to have this player cheap for 3 years after this one, as opposed to 3 years right now.
I think they might want him to just go on the road trip with the team also. I mean, they haven't had.
They could do that.
They went to that Kraft Hockeyville games there in New Brunswick and Newfoundland, and then they've just had like a couple of short road trips. They haven't been on an extended road trip where, you know, team meals and bonding and getting to know the guys. So I think they'd want him to experience that also.
That's a good point.
Well, they have a lot to figure out moving towards these next 3 home games, which they'll play Arizona, Dallas, and Minnesota. Perhaps he joins the road trip or not. But let's not forget, guys, the Taj Mahal took a long time to be built. And when it was built, it's been fantastic. And maybe for Juraj Slafkovsky, he could be the next Taj Mahal for the Montreal Canadiens to build as a foundation piece moving forward. And finally, guys, let's get down to the last question. And we talk about defensemen for the Montreal Canadiens. So far, after 4 games, which young defenseman has impressed you the most?
I think it's fair to say Kaiden Guhle has got a lot of people talking about how well this young kid has stepped in and shown poise and confidence in all areas of the game. You know, averaging 21 minutes, getting a chance now to play a little bit on the power play. Very dependable, great skater, not afraid to jump into the play. Very, very responsible defensively. Learning how to play, you know, in his zone. Great all-around young man that is really a great addition, obviously, to the blue line. And to see him respond the way he's responded in such a short period of time is nothing but a bonus. I think that you know, he has the tools to be a very big part of the defensive core, and he's taking full advantage of every opportunity he's been given to show what he's worth. And from what I understand, he's a great kid. He wants it bad. It looks like it, and he's playing like it.
Yeah, Rick, just from speaking to him in the locker room, I mean, I wrote a column. It's hard to believe this kid's 20 years old. He's just so mature on and off the ice. It's you know, if Nick Suzuki wasn't already the young captain of this team, this kid is captain material. He seems to be a leader. Playing with David Savard has really helped him, I think, having a veteran there on the ice, a sort of stay-at-home type of guy. He's improved. I mean, now Marty Salini's got him on the power play. He's got him killing penalties. He's got him starting in overtime. He's got him. This kid does it all, and he's going to be around here for a long time. So he's impressed me the most. But the biggest surprise has been Arbor Jacki. I mean, you know, never drafted in the OHL draft, never drafted in the NHL draft. You know, people were talking about during that rookie tournament where he got in that fight and he dropped the guy with the right hand. You know, the fighting thing, now the nickname the Sheriff, but he can play. I mean, he moves around and well in the defensive zone. He's not fun to play against. I tweeted out the other night, he's the best legal cross-checker the Habs have had since Shea Weber. Very effective using his stick in front of the net and in the corners. He moves a puck well. He's smart. And like he's got to be pinching himself that he's actually playing in the NHL right now. And he's playing like, I don't want to leave here. I think he probably will end up in Laval at some point when Matheson and Edmondson come down. But he's proving that he's a guy who can play in the NHL, and he's not fun to play against. He's, you know, Ben Sherratt was like that, a guy who wasn't fun to play against. Weber wasn't fun to play against. You need some defensemen like that in today's NHL still who aren't fun to play against. And he's impressed me. He's really surprised me. He's a much better player than I thought he was.
Yeah, I think Kaiden Guhle is coming off the best game of his career so far. I know it's only 4 games in, but being hard matched against Sidney Crosby, who has been on an absolute tear to start the season for Pittsburgh, and shutting him down pretty much completely is an incredible testament to that young kid. It's incredible what he's been able to do in such a short time. Already playing number 1 minutes, 4 games in. I know there's 4 rookies on this defense core, but he's already surpassed, I think, the veterans on this team. We'll see what happens to his ice time once Mike Matheson comes back. But I think Mike Matheson's going to have an easier time than I thought coming into this season, because he's going to be able to split tough minutes with Kaiden Guhle. He's not going to be a guy on an island who has to be the number 1 defenseman with no support. I think Kaiden Guhle, as the season goes on, is going to be essentially a top pairing defenseman for this club. However, the guy who's impressed me the most on a relative scale has been Jordan Harris, because last year, Jordan Harris, he looked okay. He had some promise. This year, different player. He's much more physical. He's much more involved offensively. He makes great reads. I haven't seen very many mistakes from him. I've just been very impressed by how cerebral Jordan Harris has been. His dynamic skating creates opportunities for him. And his defense partner, Kovacevic, has been great too. We mentioned earlier in the show about how he made some mistakes going up the wall and he was looking for lanes. What I appreciate about his game is he has the confidence to make plays that fail and stick to them, get the puck back, and then make the right play. And that's something that I think comes both from Kovacevic having confidence in himself and also the coaching staff not sitting guys for mistakes. Yeah, I'm going full circle back to the first question.
Yeah, well, Jordan Harris, you're right. I mean, we knew he could skate. We knew he could move the puck. He stood out to me the very first development camp he was at after he was drafted. He's really been physical. You're right. He's been very, very physical. And, you know, people are wondering about, you know, Romanov when the Canadiens traded him at the draft. Part of the reason they traded him is they knew Kaiden Guhle was coming up, and they figured Kaiden Guhle was going to be better. and cheaper for this point with the team dealing with the salary cap. And so far he's shown that he is. I mean, he almost made the team last year, one of the last cuts. And we're talking earlier about Slafkovsky and maybe being sent down. You got to remember, Kaiden Guhle was sent back to junior last year. Didn't hurt him. Didn't hurt Nick Suzuki when the Canadiens sent him back to junior either. So if the Canadiens do decide to send Slafkovsky down to Laval, it's not going to hurt him. For Kaiden Guhle, he looked ready to play in the NHL last season. The training camp, he played really well. Now he's like really ready. Like you see, he's their number one defenseman right now. He really is. And I think, David Savard's a guy that I think deserves some credit for this also. Just the way he's been able to, and Goulet's talked about this a lot, just the way he's helped him on the ice, off the ice. He's like quiet, calm type of guy, telling Guhle, brush when you get a chance. Play your game. I'm here to back you up. And I think that's helped him. That, along with the coaching, as you mentioned, Andrew, that not afraid to make mistakes, having a defensive partner that he knows is going to be there to back him up. And it's the kids just look. It's only 4 games, but man, he's really looked good.
And I always like to judge the young defensemen on their ability under pressure to make the right decision with the puck. And if you look at that group back there right now, and again, it's compliments to pairings that help your partner, get bailed out like I did when Peter Saboldi used to have to scrape his face off the glass. But anyways, the whole group of them have a real knack of being able to make good decisions with the puck and move the puck intelligently, to the right places. And you also like to see some of these kids, when they do get themselves handcuffed, when they really don't have a great option, they basically, the old expression, eat the puck, not give it away, and hope that we make the right pass by shooting around the boards. We don't see that. They're showing poise, they're showing intelligence, and a large percentage of the time they are really making good decisions under pressure and moving the puck at the right time to allow them to contribute both offensively and to be very, very sound defensively.
Yeah, the line that Marty St. Louis used before the game in Washington, I asked him, what advice does he have for the young defenseman going up against Ovechkin? He said, if you get in trouble, punt the ball. It's a football expression. Just punt, get it out. And we were talking earlier there, Andrew, about him shutting down, Guhle being there and being able to shut down Crosby. He also shut down Ovechkin and Matthews. He's played 3 of the biggest goal scorers in the NHL in his first 4 games. None of them scored a goal. And he was on the ice most of the time they were on the ice.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And I will say, there's only been one game where I think this young defense core has struggled, and that was the game against Detroit. And the game against Detroit, frankly, everybody struggled defensively. I don't know if it was just they couldn't handle Soderblom, who looks like a cheat code out there at 6'8", who can dangle and skate, but they really struggled against Detroit. But every other game, they've been in it from the first drop of the puck to the end of the final horn.
I'll say this about Kaiden Guhle. You think about his draft here, that following season, his season got stunted because of COVID-19, and it makes it more impressive to see where his development is. And Stu, you had a tweet on Monday's game during the Pittsburgh game where he locked down Sidney Crosby. It brought back memories of 2010, what PK Subban did to Crosby in a small sample size of what his future would have been. As we all know, he won a Norris Trophy with the Habs and did a remarkable job with this organization. Do you think, the way he's going, that maybe he might be in that conversation 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the road?
Well, it's still so early after 4 games, but he definitely has all the abilities to. I mean, how many 20-year-old kids can come into the NHL and play monster minutes, play the power play, PK, on the ice to start overtime, not looking out of place at all? And it was interesting because Guhle asked him after the game if he was nervous or whatever going over overtime, and said Cole Caulfield came up to him and said, just play your game. And that's what Marty St. Louis told Cole Caulfield when he took over. Look how that worked. And now with Kaiden, just go out and play your game. Marty St. Louis just wants these kids to go out and play, and they're doing it, and they're thriving, just going out there and just play. It's still a game. Go play. Marty St. Louis says, he has concepts, not systems. I spoke with Cole Caulfield. I've got a column coming up later this week just saying, the one goal he scored when Dominic Ducharme, he said, basically, you're always thinking about the system. You weren't thinking about just playing hockey, and now they're just playing hockey.
And play the right way, and you're going to earn your opportunity to play in different situations. And the proof is actually seeing what these kids are doing. They're earning the opportunity. So let them go, let them develop, and you're going to get better with time.
Last one, Andrew.
I will say one thing that stood out to me in the last couple of days here is I saw a comparable for Kaiden Guhle of what to expect. Jacob Slavin. Guy who might not necessarily put up the most amount of points, but is physical, a defensive powerhouse, and gets involved offensively. I think that's a great comparable for what Kaiden Guhle can become over the next few years.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Hockey Inside Out. Submit your questions that we hopefully will look at and discuss on future bonus episodes. Subscribe and like on the YouTube page for Hockey Inside Out, and check out and subscribe to the hockey newsletter, MontrealGazette.com/newsletter. And also for future episodes, full episodes, and bonuses, check out the Hockey Inside Out page as well on the YouTube section. And on behalf of Stu, Rick, and Andrew, hope you enjoy the week. It'll be a fun one for the Habs. We'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.